And we're live. So, welcome everyone to the Judge a Book by its Cover live stream. I am joined by Steve, Jez, Rose, and Lorne. Yeah, please ask questions. I definitely knew all about this in advance and planned meticulously. So, judging a book by its cover. I suppose we actually have a brilliant assortment of different kind of genres and authors here. I know Jez has his very grim, dark-esque covers that he absolutely swears by. Rose has fantastic ones like First Fist, I think is absolutely gorgeous. And Steve with Aethon Books, I have no idea if you're frozen.
No, but that was great. I was waiting for you to say something.
Yeah, just like absolutely transfixed. I can see myself moving in the reflection on your glasses.
Oh, I didn't think it was stupid glasses ruin everything. Man.
But yeah, and it's like, and then we also have the complete insight from Lorne with the Royal Road trajectory as well, and like what covers maybe work there versus Amazon. So I guess to kind of get us started off, what do you think a cover needs to be? As in, like, so we'll start this off in the barest of things, because everyone has like a root thing of like, it needs to be this. Like, is it an action scene? Does it need to convey the first 40% of the book? Does it need to look just really, really good on a thumbnail? What is it that you would say is the one key thing about a cover that's most important? And we'll start with Steve.
First thing I tell every author that we are kind of, you go through the brief process with them. And I tell them right from the start, the book cover sells your book, not your story. So get the scene out of your head. Like, I don't necessarily want a scene from your book, although that could work. They have that option, but like, man, some things that they come to me with do not translate from crazy ass lit RPG to visual form. Like, you described this thing, but you don't want to see this thing actually drawn. It doesn't, so for me, the thumbnail is the most important thing. We're very Amazon focused, and if it doesn't look good at thumbnail, it's not a good cover.
Cheers.
I'll definitely agree with that. It's a case of you don't want it to be too busy as well, because if you think, your cover, when you're looking at it, when you're on the main page of Amazon, or when you've got a paperback or anything like that, you're looking at it, you can see all these details, and it's great. But if you scroll right down to the bottom, and it shows you things like you may also like, and you really want your book to be in that, because if people are looking at a certain thing, you want them to see yours as well, or whatever you're advertising. So they then see something that's this big. And if you've got a really, really busy cover that's this big, normally you shrink it down to here, and all you've got is a blur of just colors.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, if you've got a very dark cover, like the majority of the ones that I do, if you've got a really dark one, you've got just a blur of dark colors. That doesn't work very well. So you really need to have a simple cover, but something that's the best thing you can do is scale it down to have a look at it and scale it back up. Always remember that nobody, the old saying of, don't judge a book by its cover. It's because we all damn well do. Nobody stops to look at something if it's not interesting. So you need to spend a lot of time and effort on that.
And what about you, Lorne?
I agree with everything that Steve and Jez have said. I think that the thumbnail is absolutely critical. When we're thinking about covers, it's often important to make sure that there's a strong focus. Like, if your cover doesn't have a focal point where somebody can latch onto, sometimes it can be kind of difficult, I think, for people to actually like focus on it and then click on it to see more. And it's definitely sometimes a challenge when you're talking about creating a scene and giving that to an artist and conveying that it has to have a solid focal point, because you can get back really amazing art, but yeah, if it's too busy, or if you're not really sure where you're supposed to look because there's like multiple characters or multiple different elements, I think that can really hurt the performance of a cover in terms of bringing in readers.
What about you, Rose?
Add there, guys, branding. Sorry, I just thought of it there. Branding. If you normally have a cover that looks in this style, and you have like 3 covers in a row that are that kind of style, that's fantastic. If you then have the 4th one that's totally different,
Sorry, just to clarify, I believe Matt is talking about Sharon's question, which is like some authors refuse to give out cover artist names. What's your opinion on those kind of authors? And like, I believe that Matt is talking about them rather than saying these authors suck.
No.
He
Matt,
can clarify if you'd like.
That's it. Don't
I'm
let
happy
me
to
know.
suck. I didn't mean it that way, but I'm happy to be an author who sucks.
I can
Oh, let's
say it.
move on now. Move on past that. I'll just leave it. No, I'll leave it. I'm happy to suck. We'll just go there. Done.
Yeah, I'm a moderator
Me
in
too,
this
Matt.
instance. I'm not even an author, so they all suck. Okay, that's fine.
At least you finally admit it, man.
Is it my turn to talk yet or no?
Yes, of
Sorry,
course,
Rose.
Rose. We
What the hell is
apologize.
going on, guys? I just wanted to add, if you're working with the publisher, listen to what Steve said and don't think about the scene. You're going to piss off the publisher. You're going to piss off the artist because it takes so many things to try and get that down. It's really best to just trust their opinion and go for something simple that pops. If I'm going to add anything else, I would say contrast is great.
Yep.
Don't just do a bunch of purple, the whole thing purple. That's going to make it tough.
Oh God, can we talk about typography?
Yeah.
If you have a purple cover, don't use purple text. Like,
Yeah.
geez, this seems like the most duh contrast statement in the world, but I see it constantly.
Yeah.
It's not matching. We're not matching here. We're contrasting.
Contrasting. Yeah.
Well, then I guess.
Yeah, sorry, I get passionate with art.
No, I completely
Nothing
get
wrong
it.
with that.
Like, have you ever run into the issue where the scene that you want, or the kind of what you imagine as the cover that really speaks to you to represent the story, conflicts with the market expectation? As in, like, that it's like, this best represents my story, but this will not sell.
Yeah.
Start with Rose on that one. Don't mind.
Shit, I wasn't listening. What was the question?
Ever conflicted when the scene that you want, or the cover art that is your dream for the story, conflicts with market expectation? Is it a cover to market?
Yeah, just do the market expectations. You're just selling the book, and then if you can get them to start liking your book because it's good and well written, then you win. But they won't pick it up if the cover sucks. So I would just say, I like to have a couple things similar. You'll get fans that'll get pissed off if it's the wrong weapon type on the cover, or some cheesy stuff like that. That's very lit RPG centric. And if you put a big random monster that doesn't exist in the story, that's a little strange. But yeah, just don't worry about the scene. Dude standing before monster, just right there, is really classic. You don't need to have him jumping in the air and casting 3 spells and yeah, that's too much.
And I don't really care what the pouch on your belt really. That doesn't matter. It doesn't fucking matter at all.
Yeah.
Unless the story's about that damn pouch. It's
a
just
pouch,
a
man. It's always a pouch, and it's always the wrong color, and it's always missing 3 studs, and it's like, oh my god.
But on the He Who Fights with Monsters cover, which was really solid, the cloak became a large part of the thematic design, which was very much a smart move. So that's a good example of stick with the character when it matters.
Cool. Anyone else want to jump on that, or we'll move to the next question?
I would say, just in that, if you are going to buck the trend, make sure you've got a damn good cover. You can buck the trend if the cover is good enough, but if it's not, if it's going to be a cheap cover, if it's just going to be an all right cover, it needs to be selling your brand. It needs to be selling what it is. I mean, if you put a great cover on there, but it looks like romance, and you try and sell it in lit RPG, it's just not going to work. Vice versa as well.
Yeah, I think the beautiful thing about the landscape that we play in is that we don't live in paperback nightstand world anymore. So people really see your cover one time. They see it when they buy the book. That's it. They're looking at it on their Kindle. Maybe if they're an Audible guy, maybe, girl, whatever. Maybe if I guess you have to click it on the Kindle, but if that's what you're actively reading, it generally just pops up anyway. So the cover is the sale point, period. I'm sure there's people out there that really inspect the cover or whatever, but if you're like me and you spent years and years reading traditionally published books, especially traditionally published fantasy, Go look at any R.A. Salvatore book and tell me any scene that depicts in any of the books ever. What they used to do was just get really popular fantasy artists and say, draw these characters doing a thing. And no one ever went, well, Drizzt and Bruenor weren't together in this scene because no one cared. They bought it because it was badass art, and then they read a badass book.
Yeah.
Which is the goal here. Buy badass art. Don't care about the art after you start reading badass book.
So then I guess one of the other things I would say for this is that we're going to cover a lot of don'ts in this panel of don't do this, and we're going to uncover a lot of pet peeves or bugbears. So just on a moment of positivity, what about a few do's? As in, like, what are the things to do? As in, like, what are the rules of thumb? What are the things that, like for the, like, what would you apply to any cover from the absolute basics? Like, what are your kind of intrinsic rules? And we'll start off with Lauren on this.
Sure. So I think that often what we see is having strong character focus tends to work well. So I think that's definitely something that I would recommend. I also would say, kind of to what Steve said earlier, don't discount the importance of typography, because you can have really simple, like a simple image, or like the image itself is like really small, and then there's a huge frame around it and like really, really good typography. And that can easily sell a cover. And I think typography can really sell a genre, because there's a certain look that typography in lit RPG and progression fantasy has. So I think that is what I would tell people to focus on who are just getting started, because typography too can be like less expensive. If you just get a cheaper image from like an artist and then you have really nice typography, I think it can elevate it.
Rose?
Yeah, I agree. That's a good one. I study the market is a good thing. So a lot of people come in with too YA of typography, or or the image kind of has like a romantic vibe to it. So look at your other covers. Imagine where your book is going to fit in that, right? Don't try to knock off someone else's cover. You can be inspired by it, but try to make something unique within that set of visual cues. That's pretty important. Here's another random tip. Get ahead of time. Like, that doesn't mean buy 7 fucking covers right away. Please don't do that. That's crazy. But book one well ahead of time, so that way if the artist is slow or there's translation issues or some of the many different things that can happen with the artist, you have time to fix it. Because it does really suck to have like a launch completely ruined by lack of cover. It's like really frustrating. So yeah.
And Jez?
Yeah, I would definitely say one of the biggest things with it is build a good relationship with your artist. I know some people don't like to share who their artists are, as seen the conversation there. Marko Drazik is my primary cover artist. I've been working with him for the last 2.5 years after my previous artist got poached. Well, didn't get poached. He got an offer from Magic the Gathering and dropped me on one of the orders. But it happens. It's annoying, but that's the way it is. But Marko I've worked with him for 2.5 years now, and he has been brilliant every single time. I keep in contact with him. If you need changes, don't go, oh, it's fine, I'll just be quiet about it. Talk to your artist, build a good relationship, and plan ahead. As Rose has said, I mean, I've got covers booked up until 2025 with him now. That's just my stuff. Just because very, very good artists are massively in demand, but it doesn't mean that you have to. Well, it's not entirely true there. Relationships matter a lot more, I find, because really good artists can earn a hell of a lot of money, so they'll make time for you if you've got a good relationship. And also, if you don't, they'll drop you regardless of how much money it is. But look at how much you're willing to pay for art. Don't expect an amazing cover for $150, but equally don't pay $3,000 for someone's shit.
And Steve?
I thought the question was interesting. People that refuse to share their artists. I mean, we're actually talking about the reason why some authors have difficulty sharing their artists, because your career is based on whether or not you can hold your brand together. And if, I mean, Athon has humbly been responsible for building artists since day one. And I don't say that in any artist that we deal with will tell you, like, Athon gave me the break and now I have a full-time career because of it. But what I've transitioned to is just paying my artist salary and expecting a certain number of books a month. And if they are able to do more beyond that and still maintain the quality, like, go do your thing. But like, here's your base salary. Give me whatever books a month, and I'll keep you fed with that stuff. And they love that. Not everyone can do that, but like, if you are an author that is putting out 8 to 10 books a year, which is what a lot of these folks are doing, consider talking to your artist about like giving them a salary to work on, and that will really help. And maybe it's not a huge salary, but it's like, maybe I need 4 books this year. I'll give you all that money like right now to make sure that I have that for every year. So I don't condemn these authors that don't want to share their artists, because it's a really tough industry, man. I mean, I don't do it, but I have some artists that have literally asked me, don't put my name in the cover because I don't have enough time to take on more work. And then I've gotten lambasted for not putting the artist's name in there. I'm like, no, dude, the guy asked me not to. He doesn't want more work. I don't know.
I think some of the artists you work with as well, you know, they desperately want more work, and others are just like, fuck no. A lot of the brilliant artists as well out there are working full time, and they're doing jobs that they don't want to give up. You know, they're working for LucasArts, they're working for whoever it is. They're working at the top of their game pretty much, but this is something that they want to do on the side for creative reasons, and because it's nice for them to do something totally different. So build your relationships, definitely.
I'll also tell you, it's not very hard to find anyone's artist. Like, if you have any Google skills whatsoever, you can find out who anybody's artist is. It's not that hard.
So here's a question then, on the topic of like artists and relationships and things like that. What about creative freedom? So this is the thing, like, we are the masters of our own stories, but then we like take the expertise of editors to refine that. With covers, how much of that should we be controlling versus how much creative freedom do you give to the artist to bring it to life? Like, what is the ideal brief and what's the ideal kind of like, hold that you should be taking on it? Like, as in, do you let them run wild and like come up with something amazing? Or do you kind of like, try and pull them back? Vague question, but to whatever you'd like to interpret it as. Rose, do you want to start?
Yeah, that's a fun one too. It's super subjective. So I tend to be a little bit more hands-off. I get kind of a general scheme to the thumbnail that I want and like what would be a good pitch for the book's idea. And then I definitely want the artist to step in and have their own vision, because otherwise usually the cover sucks. But at the end of the day, if the art comes back and it doesn't hit, if it doesn't pop, then I ask for changes. So I love them to have creative freedom, but at the same time, if it doesn't look like a good cover, I will ask for changes. So I have the last say because I'm the one that's risking everything on the marketing.
Absolutely. Lauren?
I think that when it comes to giving too many details, it can definitely constrain the quality of the cover. I think my least favorite cover I've commissioned and used was the one that I most constrained for my own series. So after that point, I stopped doing that. I think that it's also tricky though, because depending on the artist, sometimes artists have a really good sense of how to make a badass cover and a cool scene. You tell them like, cool dude, like fighting or something, and then they're able to really make it come together. And other times artists just don't have a good sense of it. And then you feel like you need to really tell them directly, like, hey, like, put this element here and this element here and try to make something work. Ideally, though, I think it's great when you get an artist that does have a good sense of the scene, and those are the artists that I try to work with multiple times.
Steve?
So I'm an artist myself, and like one of the areas that I would encourage people is like, you might have done this, so please don't take offense if I say this, but like, I don't go to my tattoo artist with my own art and tell him to put it on because that's not fun for the tattooer. I like to give the idea and say, let's make this happen. And then I might make some adjustments to his stencil at the end of it. But it's the same thing with the cover arts. Like I get my book covers for my own books personally before I've even written the book, because I will cater what I'm describing to fit the cover rather than try to make the artist fit my words. Because I've found we've worked, I've got 200 and something authors, done 2,500 or so books. And like what I found is that no matter how close to that brief you get, they still have something in their head that's not actually in the words. And they get fixated on these things. And it becomes this long drawn out process where I eventually have to say, it's good enough, dude. It'll sell. That's all we care about. It's going to sell. And that's a horrible place to be in as a creative director, because the last thing I want is for my authors to think I don't care. But at one point or another, I don't care anymore. I want a cover that's good and it's going to sell. Makes sense. It makes. I don't mean to sound like an asshole, but like that's.
No, it makes perfect sense. It also makes perfect sense because of the sheer volumes that you're working on. So if you're working on 100 covers a month, say, or 100 books a month, whatever the number is, just as a rough workout there. I mean, how many is that a day that you're having to go through? If you just do that, if you're just communicating with artists all day saying, you need this change here, you need this change here, you need this change here, you will get nothing else done.
That is most of my day.
Yeah. So you can't do that in every way. I give my artists a description and I say, this is what I see. And I usually do it over the phone as well, or sorry, on a video call. I give them it in an email and then I talk it through with them, because that way they can ask questions, I can ask questions, we can discuss the vibe of it and the way it feels. And then it's a case of, right, so great. Any questions? Fantastic. Talk to you soon. And then I generally get a sketch back. And there's usually 3 or 4 sketches where it's like this. And you go, right, well, I really like B because that's the best one for me. C doesn't really work. And that way they get to play a bit and you get to play a bit. And when it comes back again the next time, it's tighter. And finally, when it comes out, I generally get a couple of different color options as well at the end. And then it's like, I will have this one. This is fantastic. But you pick them, as a few comments have said there, you pick these people because of their skill. You are not the professional artist. I can't draw for toffee. My son, Max, is 5. He is a better artist than me. That really isn't a lie. He is a better artist than I am. Hands down, my 3-year-old is probably a better artist than I am. So when it comes to a professional saying, this is what I think, it's like, yeah, as long as I don't hate it, I'm going to go with their vote. But one thing I would add on to it is when you're doing this kind of thing with cover art, explain to your cover artist how many covers you're looking for. Because you don't want to be in the middle of a 9-book series and he only signed up for 3 and now he's fucking off. And you've got to try and find somebody that can match the style or redo to make it work.
So Facebook user had a question there. It's like, which book of y'all's has your favorite cover? Rose, we'll start with you.
I mean, depends on what pen name we're talking about, but under my Progression Fantasy one, I still think First Fist is obviously the best. But there's 2 different covers on that. One, I went with something that kind of vibed with Mansik Yang, because I wanted like a power fantasy vibe. And then while that cover came, I was happy with it and I felt like it would have been successful, but it didn't match the tone of the story. So I went out to totally forgot their name. Fuck. They do the really pretty setting painted style. I found them on ArtStation and was just really, really blown away. And that fit the more emotional tones of First Fist better. And so I swapped it and it was a much better fit and it made the series do better too. So that one's by far my favorite.
Owen?
I just have to say that one of my favorite covers of all time is actually the Guildcore Book 1 by Rose. Yeah. But so I think that for my series, my favorite cover is probably my book 5, It's literally the epitome of like cool dude. It's actually my phone background. But yeah, I just think it's really cool. I think that it got a lot of attention. It just markets the book really well.
And Jez, not even reading
Oh.
that. Jez?
Yep. Hi, Zach. Yep. Love you too. I would say either my Arise Alpha, just for the whole, like, you know, all the shit that's going on, all the colors. But my favorite would probably be my third omnibus cover, which is that one. Because when you see the full cover, so the way it's spread out, it's just, he's just standing there and you can just read every single line of him says, I am done with this shit, but I'm still going to have each and every one of you. And when my artist turned that in, I was just like, yes to this. This is a yes. Yeah.
And Steve?
You're on mute, mate.
I was being nice. Actually, I wasn't. I said if he sat down on that typography, it would really hurt.
This is why we get on.
Yeah. So I've got. It's really difficult, right? Because to me, that's like asking what kid do I like the best.
Oh, that's
I've
easy.
got, I don't know, like 6 series, all done by different artists, and so I feel like if I say this one's my favorite, all the other artists are going to go, well, what about me? So I like to choose like my favorite within a series. And since I'm working on Dragon Blood Assassin right now, I would say that my favorite in that series is book 1, Black Talon. I don't have it to show you. I mean, I guess I could, but I don't need to. It's just badass assassin riding a dragon. Like, how much better does it get? So,
Yeah. Oh, so, yeah, like I guess, sorry, now just people weighing in on the parenting. And I'm sure that you all absolutely do have a favorite child. You don't need to confirm or deny that. So one of the questions, and once you have accepted your covers, have you ever wished for more images to include inside the story as well? Anyone want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I mean, I've written a few light novels, so sometimes it's part of the genre. Also, like, even since progression fantasy doesn't necessarily desire that, but I don't think it's going to offend anyone. And I think instead of inserting it in the story that might throw off some reader expectations, it's cool to just dump images in the beginning or at the end, or just to hand them out to fans. So commissioning extra art is never a mistake, as long as you're like being realistic with your budget. Like, some people really love art and they'll dump thousands. But yeah, light novels also have a different expectation where you need to have at least black and whites in the pages. So that can make things really fun. That's actually kind of a pain in the ass, because if it doesn't match the scene, then you're kind of in trouble. So completely different expectations of art there. Yeah.
Anyone else? Yeah?
Yeah, I think it's important to note, we get a lot of authors that want to add images into books. I think it's important to note that actually costs you money. The delivery fees from Amazon go up, and images make them go up a lot. So like, I let them know, would you rather have art or royalties? And 99 out of 100 times they say royalties. And if they say art, I say I'd rather have royalties. And that's the end of the discussion. It just doesn't seem worth it to me. Somebody already bought the book. That's the publisher and me talking, not the author, right? They already bought the book. Whether there's art inside or not really doesn't matter. They bought the book. That's the goal. Author has a different answer altogether.
I don't know. I'd agree with that one. I mean, I did my omnibus editions. I put art inside of those ones because I wanted to make my omnibus editions totally different and, you know, and special. But yeah, I totally get with that, because they cost a goddamn fortune to do good art, and especially good concept art, because sometimes you get it back and you've commissioned this, you've given them all the details, and you've told them yes or no a few times as it's come back, and there's only so much you can do. And it arrives and you go, that's great. It does not work for what I want, though.
I want to be clear. When I said it costs money, I meant literally costs money in the delivery of Amazon. Okay, cool. Just making sure I was clear on that. So it didn't sound like I was telling my artist.
Steve, guys, such a cheap bastard.
No, dude, I wanted to make sure people didn't think that I was charging our authors for art. That's not part of it.
No, definitely not. No, but I was meaning that on top of the fact
Yeah,
that it costs you extra in the delivery fees and how much Amazon takes out of it, it also costs you to produce the art. And, whether you get something that's usable at the end of the day with concept art is very much.
Yeah, and to add to the part about the cost, like I said, on the light novel front, you really can't not do it. But I've lost as much as like 50 cents per download for delivery cost. It's totally normal, so I just include that in part of my projected earnings. But yeah, you don't want to just ruin your earnings if you don't even need it, right? So that's why I don't do that with my fantasy books or progression fantasy.
So before we get to the questions about maps, which are pretty cool, one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, have you looked at a cover and just went, "Oh, honey"? Now, obviously, the purple cover with the purple typography, but just not telling us what the cover is or naming the author or anything like that, but telling what are the reasons for you thinking, "Oh, honey."
15 times a day. Easy.
Steve, give me 15 examples, please.
The benefit of working with a publisher is when they have a creative director who understands art, they can tell you when art is bad. Art is not objective. I don't really care that much. Whatever. It's good art is good art across the board. There might be preferences you have, but that doesn't change whether or not good art is good art. Good art means that the anatomy is right, that the person looks like a human being, that the monster looks like the thing that you're describing, that the landscape makes sense. All of those things in cover art you can't argue that unless there's a stylistic approach taken on purpose, and it's clear that that's the stylistic approach that's been taken. So we see, obviously we're in all kinds of groups where we deal with a lot of authors. I see art that authors bring me and go, "I got this commissioned already. Can we use it?" And I go, "There's no way I'm using that." And it's everything from, the guy's head is 3 times too big to the composition is so confused. Lauren mentioned it earlier. Like if you're not able to focus on an element of the cover, your eyes get wonky and you can't figure out what you're looking at. And we see that a lot. They tried to slam so much into this art. And to them, it's cool because they know what everything is. But to the viewer, when you don't know what everything is, it's just a hob of nonsense.
Jez?
Yeah. Basically, I'm just going to agree with that, because some of the stuff that we've got friends who've put covers out and we've sort of looked at it and gone, "Oh, bless you. That's nice. Did your kids draw it?" And yeah.
That's mean, Jez.
No, but it's being realistic about it. It's a case of people are buying your book. They're only stopping looking because of what's coming. They're looking through. They're going to see 1,000 books, or 1,000 pictures a day that aren't going to register. Adverts or whatever. There's always stuff everywhere to try and draw their attention. If your cover doesn't do that, you've just given up your only chance, because your blurb and so on might be fantastic, but it doesn't matter if nobody ever looks at it. So you've got to get your cover right.
I'll buy a cover with bad art before I buy a cover with bad typography. That tells me you phoned it in, or you tried to do it yourself because you didn't want to pay a typographer $100. Whatever it might be. I've done every single cover we have. I did the typography. Not all of them are the best thing ever, but I do what I can, obviously. I think they're great, but like, dude, if I see a cool piece of art with some like shitty, barely effort put into it typography, I'm out immediately.
I suppose just very quickly on that, Steve, what's your opinion on when somebody uses the same graphic artist or, the artist, and they also do the typography?
I would
Is that
say
a no-no for you?
Most artists don't understand typography. There are going to be exceptions, but I have yet to really see a cover artist that nails the typography. That's not true. Jay Caleb from Jay Caleb Design is one of the few whose typography I've actually used. He's really good, and I think he's maybe one of the ones I would say does a really great job in typography.
So, Lauren, anything to weigh in on the Oh Honey or typography versus cover?
So I think that there are two types of covers really that are ineffective. And I think the first one is the type of cover that really like unless someone is like seriously like self-deluded, like they have to know it's not good, right? Like literal like the barest minimum of common sense. So that's like the one category of cover it's literally just give it to anyone. They're like, this is like absolutely just dumpster fire garbage. And to people who genuinely use those covers, I feel like it's like the American Idol type moment where, you know, you have someone go on and then they sing and they're like, don't you know you're awful? Like, why are you doing this?
Because they don't see it. They really, really, really
Yeah, exactly. So you have that, but then you also have people who like maybe they actually kind of get it, but their coverage just isn't working. Like it's just not the right thing. I think Rose said earlier, like it's off genre. Maybe it's just doing the wrong thing. Like what Steve said, it's too busy. Like there's just all these different things that can be kind of wrong. Or what Jez said is it just looks like a dark smudge on a thumbnail.
If you have really good art, I'll do your typography for free. I'm not kidding. Like,
Don't tease me. Don't tease me like that.
I will. Luciano Fleitas does a great job on typography also, and he's a great artist. I forgot about him.
But yeah, I mean, I said earlier that I think typography is like extremely important and can really help. I generally also just recommend getting typography separate on that side though, because like for instance, say you do have to like switch artists, right? Like midway through a series, if your artist was also doing your typography, you know, maybe you can have someone match it, but it's just easier. And I think you're a lot less likely to have a typographer run away from you than a good artist run away from you, just in my experience.
What's your thoughts, Rose?
Yeah, there's a lot of good points said there. One thing to generally kind of watch out for, I think, is when someone, like I've heard a few people say, well, the artist really wanted to try. You don't let anyone try anything on your book. It's not a fucking experiment. This is a very important process. And this part especially, just kind of control it. But yeah, take the sentiment out of the cover. It doesn't need to be sentimental in a way that your book does, right? Like, don't sacrifice a couple things in your story. Don't try to write a formula book that hits market every single trope and do perfect like that. I don't think that helps. But a lot of people do publish like their nephew's painting, and they're like, it's oil color, and I'm like, I can tell those were big, lovely brush strokes. Like I've tried to give indie authors some advice where I'm like, can I see your cover? And then they show me and I'm like, well, that's far off of market expectations. So when they see your book, they don't even know what to buy. It's not as if it doesn't even matter if it's good art. If they have no clue what the hell you're selling, then why pick it up, right?
And remember how messed up the categories is, right? The
Yeah.
category systems is. So like if your cover doesn't tell me what category it is, Amazon categories is not telling me what category your book is.
No.
Yeah, you're already battling against it. You need to not handicap yourself with stuff.
Exactly.
So another kind of question on this is like, you know, because like a lot of you, all of you have written multiple books. So, and like, you know, and in Steve's case, I published a lot more. Sorry, also Lauren and Jez. But sorry.
It's not the same kind of level as Steve has, though.
Yeah, you know, Jez, I'm trying to be inclusive as fuck. Shut up, Jez. Sorry. So it's how do you pair series together in terms of cover? Because you're trying to be, you know, new, you're trying to show off, you know, something new, but also that pairing and sense of belonging to what came before it. So that book 2, book 3, book 4, how do you manage to make them resonate or things like that? Like, do you use the same colors? Do you use different colors? Like, what would be the sort of tricks that you would use to kind of create that cohesion while still being unique?
In one series from book to book, is that the question?
Yes, in one series, book to
your
book.
typography is your branding. 100%. Your covers, as long as they have, like Jez said, as long as the overall feel and mood of the cover is the same art-wise, it doesn't matter what color it is. It doesn't matter who's on it. None of that really matters if your branding is on point. Like this is just like marketing 101 from 1942, right? Like Coca-Cola could put the Coca-Cola symbol on anything there is and people would go, it's Coca-Cola. That's my answer. I might be wrong, but that's my answer.
No, I agree. I was just suddenly horrified by the message that came on the bottom there of Zach or Paul being the mod. That just the mere thought of that just horrifies me. No, you're exactly right. Branding is so important, and it keeps style. I mean, the style of things, the typography is what people are reading, so they have to look at it to see what the name is. They might not notice some of the details in the picture, but they're going to damn well notice your typography. So yeah, I agree with that.
Anything to add, Rose?
Yeah, I think another thing that's kind of fun, and I think it works more subconsciously. So I agree with the other suggestions, but like I sometimes like to do a color gradient between covers in a way that feels logical. Like if your series ends with a terrible war, that might be your cool black glowy red background cover, and then or do you want it to end on a happy note with like bright skies and you started the opposite? So I tend to have a logical progression of background colors as well. But that's super personal, and I think it's fun too. So.
And Lauren?
Nothing to add. I think that typography is like the main way.
Perfect.
Can I share one more thing?
Of course.
As the typography guy, one of my biggest challenges is when somebody comes to us with a series and book one is called, Immortal, right? One word, here's the design, Immortal. And then book two is called The Immortal Princess of Drawn, or, whatever. And you're like, cool, I just based my entire branding of your series on one word. And now we're switching. And so like, I'm not necessarily the guy that says you got to follow a theme. Like if it's, the Barry Goddess saga was Web of Eyes, Winds of War, War of Men, right? Like everything was that. And I did that because as a typography, I knew how I was going to do it. And I wanted to maintain that branding. But definitely consider the words that you're using as your titles when you're also thinking about branding your series. Or brand it the name of the series and put the name of the book smaller.
That seems super common sense, but it doesn't.
It's not, believe it or not.
I know.
Sense is not common.
It's a superpower.
I highly recommend, just as like a note, what Steve just said about having like series name, because you have to think about how people are mentioning it. Like if people are talking about the books on like Reddit or Facebook and stuff, like for instance, like oftentimes they're going to refer to it by either the name of the first book or the name of the series.
Yeah.
Which one is better SEO?
Well, Royal Road has created something that's really great, and that is nobody even has names of books anymore, right? It's He Who Fights with Monsters 1 through 732. It's Defiance of the Fall 1 through 58, right? Like it makes it really easy for me to create a logo, because that's essentially what you're doing when you're branding your books, is you're giving your books a logo.
Okay. So a question came in from John Klein that I think will have some strong opinions. Thoughts on AI artists, Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, etc., either in whole or in part? Okay.
An abomination.
Okay, so we started with Jez, an abomination. Elaborate.
I don't even feel like I
Absolutely.
could comment on this without pissing off an
I'm sorry,
entire.
Harry.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I mean, I have zero patience for AI art used in, what we have as a stance on our website is it will not be used in a commercial manner. I think there are applications for AI. I've got a poster, a canvas on my wall that's AI art of every character in one of my series. There's like 80 characters, and I just wanted to visualize my characters. So my co-author was like, having fun with Midjourney, and he created the whole thing. I don't sell it. I never will. But it's there. And so like, it's really great for imagination, especially for authors that we can't afford to pay an artist for 80 characters that are not going to make us any money. but we can visualize it.
I'll agree with that. It's sorry, I jumped straight in with the abomination thing because I do think it's terrible and it's costing really, really good artists their careers, and it'll come for us eventually. I do think it's an abomination in a lot of ways, but I should have clarified that. I should have added a qualified statement that is, if you're going to, when you as the artist, as the author, sorry, are trying to describe what you want as your cover, if you use something like Midjourney or whatever to create a bunch of singular images and say, well, I like this halberd, I like this style of armor, I like this, I like this, I like this, could you do something that's something like this? You give them examples. That's great, yeah, by all means. That's where I see use of future in art.
Yeah,
but
great for references.
Yeah. As the exclusive part, I think it's terrible.
Like a Pinterest board being like, this is the way I
100%.
want my kitchen. Like, this is what I'd like. So what about you, Rose?
I mean, I think they both just said it. Specifically, just as a prompt, it seems like a really valuable tool. Helping with your own brainstorming, you can create your visual pin boards so you don't forget things. That's fun. It's a great tool. And it's not about covers, but AI and writing. I think a lot of people are instantly trying to like make novels, which is silly. But I have thrown up my own outline and say, make 3 different versions. And then I push back against it and change everything. And it's useful as like a mirror. It's a bouncing board. But if you're having AI generate original content and thinking that it's good, then that's going to lead you to some trouble for sure. It's a tool.
Lauren?
So I think that we all agree, and I think a lot of people who are writing in this industry agree that AI art should not be replacing artists. That artists are a very important part of the process and just part of the ecosystem. I think that AI art offers a unique opportunity as in terms of reference photos, as people have mentioned. But I also think it can add some security as a backup plan. I think that, for instance, in the case that Rose mentioned of say an artist is like extremely late and your art isn't done, and this is an example of, for instance, like a self-published author, right, who doesn't have like a backup in the wings, like they've been waiting for this art, and then to commission it, a new artist to do it wouldn't get done in enough time. I think that the precedent for a while has been in those situations, like use stock art, right? I think AI art can definitely be better than stock art. So I definitely see in cases like that, or cases where an expensive cover just for whatever reason isn't performing. I think that in that case, you've already paid a really good artist, and then you need something immediately to deal with like an unforeseen crisis, essentially, where this cover you've spent a lot of money on and you've prepped for it just isn't performing, and you need to do a swap. So I do think that there are some situations where it can be strategic. I think that there's still definitely a discussion about the ethics and morality, and also just like copyright and all that can also surround that. But it's just something to think about. And I think that you definitely see a lot of like self-published authors, for instance, taking advantage.
I think there's a danger. There's just a danger in, we try to stay neutral in so many areas. We try to stay neutral politically. We try to stay neutral with any kind, just anything, because there's 50% of the community here. There's 50% of the community there. In AI art, you've probably got something like 90% of the community versus 10% of the community. And I am not going to take a chance with 90% of my community for 10%. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. Maybe you're in a crunch, but like that is part of the industry. Your cover's not performing. You fucked up. That's it. That's it. Wait 3 months until an artist, and I'm not being mean, but you understand what I'm saying? Like, I wouldn't go Midjourney, replace it, because now you're opening a new can of worms. Now you've got everyone who has just seen your cover go, they replaced it with Midjourney. And now there's this huge Reddit nonsense going on. And now you've sacrificed your brand, you've sacrificed whatever. Right now, I think there's too much danger to play around with Midjourney as a publisher or as a successful author. It's not worth it to me, personally.
Plus, you don't want to cover with a guy with 47 fingers.
They got better with the hands, though. They got better.
How do you know, Steve?
In my
Sorry.
experience, you do see covers though that end up doing extremely well on Amazon that are absolutely Midjourney covers. So you can usually tell, right? Midjourney or Stable Diffusion, and it doesn't prevent a book from doing well.
No,
which-
I don't care about the people buying the books. I care about the community that I'm need to be a part of.
Right.
That's what I'm talking about. It's the authors. I'm in a more unique position, maybe not than everybody. I mean, you guys are in the same position. Like, we need to be very careful what we say to the community, because this community doesn't shut its mouth. There's a lot of talking, and I want people to like us because we like
It's
people.
very true. And the thing is, we've all built our relationships with our artists, and I totally agree. I mean, when we released out my first book, my wife and I, we talked about, and it was a case of we can either eat for the rest of this month, or we can pay all our bills. We can't do both. And we worked our asses off to be able to get enough money for that cover. And I totally understand that a lot of people are not in a position to pay big money for a cover. And I wasn't. Our series wasn't. And we held back months and months to be able to get the money for that cover. It's a sucky situation. It is. There's always gonna be some caveats where you go, well, but only if this happens, like Lawrence said, you know, if the shit hits the fan and you've got your release on Tuesday and you've been dropped in it, as I've been before, you panic. But at the end of the day, we need to support our artists, I think.
Well, it's like the same argument as, like, I have an album that I want to record, but I can't afford a studio. What do I do? Like, okay, I want to be a fisherman, but I can't afford a boat. What do I do? Like, it's the same in any industry. You've got to save up. You've got to forego publishing your book until you have the ability to do it right. I was broke, man. I was absolutely broke. I made my own cover. Thank God I know how to make covers, but like, there's always, I think Rose mentioned swapping. Like, there's always opportunities to swap. I'm being serious. I'll do your typography for free. If you come to me and say, I have really great art and I can't afford a typographer, I will do it for free. I don't care who you are.
I'd like to add too that stock art can be pretty badass, especially if you invest in a little bit of time spent on tweaking things in Photoshop. You can make it new. You can still give credit to the stock art that you get it from. And honestly, like, there's been a ton in Lit RPG that are stock art that people didn't realize. There's one in particular. It's that like shattered pieces of like shadow going off. I think it was like the Reborn Apocalypse, and there's been a bunch of other ones that use that, and it's really cool art. That, and I had trouble funding my first books, so I asked Athon to help me. We've got 3 publishers on this panel, so if you're a newbie author and you want to stay self-published, that's awesome. I wanted to control a lot of my own stuff, so I'm a hybrid author. So the stuff that I give to publishers, I play by those rules, and then other things I get to do on my own. So there's multiple ways in that's kind of like a compromise, or if someone's just really having a hard time. Yeah, I just wanted to add that.
Yeah.
Jess said earlier that, like, you know, don't pay $150 for art and expect whatever. But like, I'm going to tell you, I've had so many of our artists come to me, and like, I'll find them and they'll be like, what are your fees? And they'll say $150. And I'll say, not anymore. Like, I won't pay somebody that. But I have found so many phenomenal artists out there in Argentina, the Philippines, Poland, places where you can afford to live a lot cheaper. If you go through Midjourney, ArtStation, all of those places, be prepared for a lot of people to go, no, it's $3,000. But like, cover art doesn't have to be as expensive as you think it does. $150 is cheap for most people, or at least attainable for most people. So like, don't give up. Go look. They're out there.
And there's nothing to lose, literally. As in, like, all you have to do is go onto ArtStation and be like, hey, I really like your art. Do you do book covers? Like, you
Go to
have
the
nothing to lose.
Fantasy Art Facebook page, and you will find people quite literally begging for work. And I've seen some of the most amazing artists on there, and their quotes are so cheap that I won't pay them that. right? Like, honestly. So they're there, waiting for work, begging for work, needing work. Maybe do the first cover for 150 and then give them a raise.
Yeah. I would add just one thing to the ArtStation and DeviantArt conversation, which is read the details of the artist that you're sending stuff to, because when you message the lead designer for LucasArts and ask if he wants to do a cover, it's a bit embarrassing when they message you back and go, "Well, I'm kind of busy," and you go, "Oh, yeah, okay, you are."
Yeah.
So yeah, pay attention. I'm coming from somebody who knows.
I did that with an artist at a conference once. I was just bullshitting. I'm like, "So what do you do?" And then I think it was Attenbury. You know, that huge guy that's got like a prize in a competition, and he's published like 180 books. And he's like, "Oh, I write a couple books." And I was like, "Cool. Have I read anything?" And he's like, "I'm not sure. Have you heard of ... And I was like, "Shit." Nice to meet you, sir. Like, oh my God. Why are you
back in my hole now?
Yeah.
So we're kind of close to wrapping up. So we have the last few minutes. So would you mind sharing with the audience, like, what it is you're working on? Or, I suppose we should, probably carve out 10 minutes for Steve to talk about everything Aethon has coming out.
I don't need to talk.
But anyone else, like, just what's coming out soon, where people can find you? We'll start with Rose.
Yeah, I'm still working on Seventh Bridge to the Heavens, Volume 2. I've had a hell of a last couple of years, so haven't had as much time to spend writing as I want. But yeah, there you go. Thanks, Geneva. It is definitely coming. I'm also dabbling with Atlas Kane, my other pen name, mostly because those books are easier for me to write. They're more kind of quirky and quick paced. So I'm bouncing around, but I do have some big plans for another series come next year with Podium. Really excited about that. I'm stuck between two titles. One is Monk and Mage, and yeah, I'm gonna hold the other one. But I've got a couple big concepts, and I don't know which one's gonna win yet. I can't decide what I'm gonna write until I'm writing it, basically. So, yep. Thank you.
And Lauren.
So I'm currently writing the supposedly final, though it better be the final book in my series, The Menach Loop. And then, of course, I'm excited for all of the projects that Timeless One Publishing has coming up this year. We have a lot coming out in January and February of 2024.
Brilliant. And Jez.
Well, I released Arise 3 on Friday last week, might be the week before. It's all been a bit of a blur, I'm afraid, with everything that's been going on. It might be last week. I don't know, genuinely. I'm very excited, most of all, for my own stuff, with the video that we've had done recently by Podium for Arise, for the Arise series. So that's up on the Lit RPG group and on my own author page as well. So I'm very, very interested in that and very proud of that. But I will say that we've got some fantastic stuff coming out soon. Even Quest Academy, which Brian was sitting there going, "Don't you fucking say it, don't you fucking say it." Yeah, even Quest Academy by the wonderful Brian. Quest Academy 1 Silvers is out, and Scavengers will be fairly soon. And we've got a few other little things out. We've got Wandering Warrior 1 with Michael Head, which is fantastic. So if you haven't tried that yet, do give it a go. I'm not going to lift the lid on the rest of the things that we've got coming out, but we've got some stuff coming out very soon. And I'm very, very excited. So hopefully you will be too. And we need at least a fortnight, as he says, for all of Steve's stuff.
I'll keep it brief.
Steve.
You can find me at jamiecastle.com. You can find me at aethonbooks.com. I've currently got 2 book series out and going, like actively going. One is Harrier. It's a superhero series. If you're an author, don't write superheroes. They're really, really hard to sell. And then Dragon Blood Assassin, I'm finishing up book 4 right now with Andy Peliquin, and that should be out at the end of next month. We did just launch Aethon Comics. RE Trailer Trash is available on webtoons.com, and it's really fantastic. Primal Hunter is coming out really soon by Zogarth, and then we've got a massive slate of really big comic projects coming out in 2024. So that's kind of what our focus has been. comics.
Brilliant. And just want to say thank you to all of you, because I have to have my briefing for Quest Academy Book 3's cover on Monday. So this
Nice.
was very, very useful. Really, really appreciate it. And yeah, I write Superhero Academy, so I guess I'm fucked. So,
Is it lit
but look,
RPG though?
it is.
That changes the world.
Okay, we're good. We're good.
Yeah.
But look, thank you all so much. Really appreciate it. I guess we can now do our awkward waves, and Geneva can